across the House. The final thing I would just say in relation to new Clause 9 is that the reason we have new clauses like this and other amendments calling for reviews is that calling for a review is one of the few ways in which opposition parties can now debate issues in the context of the finance bill. Because in recent years, and I think to the shame of ministers actually, ministers have been too frightened and too cowardly, it seems, to allow finance bills to be subject to amendments in the way that they have traditionally been able to be amended. And so rather than proposing practical, concrete changes that we might like to see, and I think actually strengthens the democratic and political debate in Parliament, where oppositions don't just criticise government but can actually lay down alternatives, and we can debate the merits of those alternatives against the government's approach. We don't have the same freedom and flexibility to do that any longer, and so instead we call for reviews. I'm not very excited by the prospect of this review, or in fact any other review that's been tabled by my party or the SNP in the finance bill, but calling for review is one of the few ways in which we get to air issues, and I think that is a great shame. I think it diminishes political debate, it grinds us into the sorts of boring, dull, technocratic, worthy, but ultimately technocratic and dull conversations that we're going to be having today, and restricts the ability of members across the House to raise the sorts of issues that are regularly raised with us by our constituents. And it has been a source of frustration, I know, to myself, to the Shadow Chief Secretary, no doubt to our colleagues in the SNP, and indeed to other members across the House who are looking to prepare amendments for report stage, that when you go to the Public Bill Office with ideas and suggestions or proposals or alternatives to the government's approach, one of the immediate conversations we now have to have is whether amendments are in scope. And I really hope, given that we are likely probably to have another finance bill sooner rather than later, probably sooner than we would all wish, certainly sooner than we will all wish after debating some of these clauses today, I really hope the government will revisit this. This was a point that was made previously by the previous Shadow Treasury team, and it's one that we share today. And I hope the Minister will respond to some of those points.